Hey, I'm Daniel, and you found my podcast, The Filmcraziest Show, on YouTube. For this conversation, I was able to speak with writer and director Maya Cozier for her film She Paradise, which is a coming-of-age story and a dance film about a young woman named Sparkle who joins a free-spirited dance group in Trinidad. The film is now available on video on demand and digital formats, and there's a link down below to rent the film on Apple TV. So let's get right into the conversation with Maya.
Hi, Maya. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I am horizontal now, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
This is the first time I've done one of these on my phone, but anyway. So we're talking about She Paradise. I'd love it if you could start by just talking about what inspired the story.
So before moving into filmmaking, I worked as a dancer and a model, a choreographer. I was also a part of this all-girl dance group that went on television every week for this competition that was kind of an imitation of America's Best Dance Group. And so a lot of those years that I spent around that group was really kind of informative for my growth. And I feel like that sisterhood really impacted me and has inspired me even to this day. And so really being able to kind of return back to the Caribbean, because I went to film school in New York, being able to return back to the Caribbean and tell a coming of age story from a woman's point of view that kind of felt like some of my experiences growing up was, the impetus behind telling the story.
Okay, neat. So did you yourself kind of inspire this character of Sparkle?
I think there are some similarities based on just kind of feeling like a fish out of water, or feeling like the sisterhood imparted certain feelings of confidence, towards me, or like ushered me and taught me things. But it's loosely inspired. I wouldn't say like this is Sparkle's story is my is my story. Okay. But they are like, I think just like my observations from that time and what I saw and observed was like really what inspired like the world of the film.
Now, this was filmed in Trinidad?
Yes, yeah.
So what was it like going back and filming it there?
It was really exciting to go back and film in Trinidad, because I think, the Caribbean is such an underexplored place. We don't have a lot of films that have been shot there, and we also don't have, a thriving film industry. So it's just like really important for people from, the quote unquote underdeveloped world to find really resourceful ways of making work. And it was kind of exciting to be able I mean, yes, there were challenges to that kind of filmmaking, low budget filmmaking, but I think there was also something kind of rewarding about having a kind of a freedom and a flexibility, and just being, very open to what the environment was telling me.
Okay. And can you talk about the casting process for the film and how you got these actresses for the film?
Yeah, so the casting process was kind of unconventional. We did a little bit of audition. We did a few auditions, some casting calls, which is where I found Onessa and Diamond. And then Shan was somebody that I danced with and also went to high school with. So she was just kind of handed the role because I knew she would be a perfect fit for it. And Mika was somebody that I reached out to on Instagram. So, making a film, especially in a place where there aren't a lot of actors, or there isn't a huge industry, it meant that we had to kind of improvise and come up with kind of creative ways to get the cast. And there was no commitment that I had to feeling like I wanted to work with real actors. I worked with regular people, and we just kind of workshopped the script and their performances before shooting.
Okay. And speaking of improv, were they able to improv at all on set?
Yeah, so there was one scene where it was fully improvised, and that's the scene when they drive towards Diamond's house for the first party. They're just kind of talking about, posing on a beach, and that was just all improvisation and their natural energy. So it was fun because the dynamic of the actors and the sisterhood was just so natural and real, even though they didn't know each other before filming. So that meant that there was just this like raw energy that we could tap into throughout the whole film, but also we could get moments of improvisation that they really leaned into naturally and effortlessly.
Okay. I thought maybe the improv scene might have been the drunken night for looking for KFC.
No, that was scripted.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
with that in mind, what's your go-to snack on your drunken adventures?
I don't have a go-to snack.
No? Okay.
I don't have one.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I had also learned that you had made a short film about this, I think, in 2019. So what was it like? What was the process like fleshing that into a feature-length film?
Yeah, I mean, if they short, I don't think we would have been able to make the feature without this short. It was just so instrumental in us, one, getting attention and interest from people who could help us make the feature. But it was also our first time being able to test out, the visual feel of the film, and also the actors. So it's not only my first feature film, but it's also the first time that a lot of these women are even acting on camera. And so the short really allowed us to kind of have this safety net where we proved to ourselves that we could do it, but then we start to figure out, okay, how is this going to look? How is this going to feel? And there are not a lot of films that have been made like this. So it was really kind of like this new ground, this new territory, and we had to kind of see it to be able to communicate to people what this is, because it's not like there are tons of films that we could reference and say, it's going to look like this, be like this. It just felt like, okay, we had to kind of do it to explain it, and to explain it to ourselves, and to be able to see it and live in it.
Okay. And now, as your first feature film, what did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker?
I mean, I feel like I learned so much from trying to make, my first feature film. I also feel like I've grown tremendously since then. But I would say though that it really required me to have a very open mind and to be flexible, and to just kind of like allow the process to take control almost, because I think going into it feeling like I need to stick to the script and to stick to what I pre-visualized would have just meant that I was in a constant state of disappointment. So I really just had to learn how to embrace the process and allow, the filmmaking itself to kind of just progress organically as new things occurred and as things shifted and locations shifted or actors shifted, to kind of go with it, go with the flow and embrace the openness of the process.
Okay. Is it harder to get to secure the locations filming in somewhere like Trinidad?
No, well, we we shot this very guerrilla style, so a lot of the locations, I think almost all, we didn't have permits for.
Okay.
So we did get into hot water because of that, but I think just shooting a film on a micro budget, it was no other choice. We just kind of had to keep it going. But there also isn't because it isn't an activity that happens often. I don't even, it's getting a permit isn't something. It's something that, yes, if you really look into it, you can do, but I don't think it's something that's requested often,
Okay.
So it's not really like a place where there's standardized procedures, because people aren't filming constantly.
Now, I'd also love to ask, you had mentioned that in your background that you're a bit of a dancer as well, or you're a dancer as well. Were you able to do arrange any of the choreography for the film?
No, so I I haven't choreographed anything since I was a teenager, so I would have been way too rusty to try to choreograph anything myself. But I had a really good friend who was also a part of that all-girl dance group growing up, who did all the choreography for the dancers, and like I really did give her a lot of freedom to just kind of, come up with routines, because she has a very eclectic style, so she pulled from a lot of dancehall styles and soca and traditional like African styles, as well as like even some moves could be considered hip hop. So she was just kind of very expressive in that way, and I gave her a lot of freedom to just kind of run with her own creativity.
Okay, great. Now, can you talk about, you highlight the dance of soca here. Can you just talk about that for people who might not know what that is and why you wanted to feature that in the film?
Yeah, I mean, so dancehall and soca is what people listen to. Reggae, this is what people listen to in the English-speaking Caribbean. Soca has its roots in calypso music, and so most Americans would know that calypso is like one of the most mainstream genres in the 50s, especially with Harry Belafonte. And a lot of those people like visited the island and interacted a lot with calypsonians from Trinidad. Some major songs like Rum and Coca-Cola, which the Andrews sisters, Rum and Coca-Cola, like Go Down Point Kumana, like that's actually a song that was written by a Trinidadian calypsonian, Lord Invader, and then culturally appropriated and made into mainstream music in the US. So soca music actually has its roots in calypso, and it's evolved into this kind of new, more like poppy, modern take. And then so that's what we listened to. And then everyone was Bob Marley, reggae, and then dancehall is kind of like this new variation of it.
Okay. Did you get to pick the songs for the film?
Yeah, I worked with a music supervisor, Zane Rudolfo, to choose the music for the film. And I was very involved in like deciding what I thought worked. Yeah.
Now, how did you come up with I think we've spoken about Sparkle a bit, but can you just talk about how you came up specifically with the character of Sparkle?
I think, I think we definitely wanted to explore how a girl or young woman comes into her own, and finds a certain kind of autonomy and goes through a change. And I think having Sparkle, feel a little bit like an outsider or a little bit isolated, and also a little unsure of herself, was kind of a necessary like starting point for us to explore her transformation. And so that was a huge inspiration behind like building this young woman who all feels very familiar to us, especially when we were at that age where we were kind of felt like being a woman was this performative act, and you try to like fit in and blend in, or act cool, whatever that means. And so it was just like very like relatable to kind of live with this character in the space that we all recognize, and see how she gets confidence imparted to her from the sisterhood, and how she kind of navigates this complex space but figures it out all on her own. So that was one of the biggest inspirations behind developing Sparkle on the page.
Okay. And I think this will be my last one, but can you just also just on the flip side in performance, can you talk about what it was like getting like showing that transformation with Onessa's performance, just in how she grows that confidence?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like I think there was something kind of intuitive about my process and also her process too, and I think Onessa is her actual person, like who she is. She, for the most part, I think she played herself, but herself is really the Sparkle who I think towards the middle of the film begins to have this kind of confidence. And there's something kind of very calm and observant about her. And I think there was that kind of introspective nature about Onessa was what I naturally gravitated towards. But I do think that the actor herself knew that the sparkle at the start is a part of herself that she is familiar with, or maybe at one point she felt that way. And so I think it was easy for her to kind of tap into that past experience and embody it throughout the beginning of the film. And then naturally, as the film progresses, I think the actor just kind of went from tapping into that memory and going into who she is in the present tense. And I think she just really, like, you know, towards the middle of the film, towards the end, like that person that you see, that energy that you see, I think that's closer to like the actor and who she really is. And I think it was just kind of natural for her to breathe and to just live in the character as herself.
Okay, cool. So when she does that walk on the beach, that's when Onessa really shines.
Yeah, I think that's Onessa as Onessa. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll keep you on track for your other interviews. So I'd just like to thank you for chatting with me about She Paradise on the Film
Thank
Craziest
you.
Show.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Thanks.